Well, hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden, or should I say the Som. It's absolutely chucking it down and has been all week, so a lot of what I'm going to be doing this week is going to be either indoors or in the greenhouse, because basically we just cannot get onto the plots this week because it's just absolutely chucking it down. The bottom end is absolutely sort of full of water and all the rest of it, so I'm hoping it's going to stop raining a little bit so I can start to put the fence up. But anyway, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so this first section I'm going to explain how and why I put the greenhouse the way that it is, because one of the subscribers, Dave Rorks, is luckily he's just got a greenhouse the same as this, and I just wanted to explain to him why I put the greenhouse the way that it is, and how I put it up and everything, because you know it's useful to know if you're going to put a greenhouse up. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you've got a good base. Now this base, this greenhouse is placed onto these slabs, and basically what I've got is a square of slabs, if you like, which is just very slightly bigger than the greenhouse. Obviously I've had to put in these sort of bits here to make up the width, but if your greenhouse, this one is 8 foot wide, you need to have a base which is slightly bigger than that. If it's 2 inches bigger or 10 inches bigger, it doesn't really matter, but what you want is for the greenhouse, or the weight of the glass in the greenhouse, to be sitting on the actual slab itself. The reason you do this is obviously when you put the frame up for a greenhouse, it is reasonably light, but of course as soon as you start putting the glass in, you don't realise how much weight there is in total sort of sitting on the slab. So the first thing, obviously, you know, you work from the ground up. The base of that the greenhouse is sitting on needs to be on good solid ground, so the ground needs to be compacted, and put the slabs down on top of that. And you need to make sure that you do that so that the slabs don't move as the weight is applied as you put the glass in. So that's the base. But before you do that, the one thing that you need to consider is this greenhouse is north facing. So if I look at the door end of the greenhouse, it's facing north, so that's direct north. The reason you do this is obviously the wall with the door on is going to get the least amount of weather, and that's, you know, the door is most certainly the weakest point of the greenhouse, because that's where it could potentially be left open, or you know, or the door can rattle or whatever. So north facing side of the greenhouse is always the side which gets the least amount of weather. Okay, the second reason you do this is if I look this way, obviously the opposite wall is going to be south facing, which means the sun's going to rise over there, and during the day it's going to move round and set over there. So it's going to rise in the east, come round and set in the west. So so all of your plants which are planted along here, along the back and along this side, are then going to get the most amount of sunlight, which is obviously important for the plants to grow. So that's basically the main reason why you put the greenhouse in this orientation. The second reason why you do this, which is potentially more important if you're in an exposed area like I am here. Obviously I've got open fields over there, you can't see them at the minute because the glass is all wet, but I've got open fields that way, and also that way. Now most winds in the UK will be going from the east to the west, or from the west to the east. So if you imagine when the wind comes along, if it hits a gable end like this, the flat end, the wind's going to be pushing against the glass, which can potentially move the glass sufficiently to break it. So obviously that's what you don't want. By putting it this way, when the wind comes from the east or from the west, which is what the majority of the weather will be, the weather's going to hit the roof and therefore go up and over the roof and down the other side. So from a wind point of view, if you put the greenhouse in this orientation, obviously the wind's going to go up and over the greenhouse as opposed to hitting a flat surface, which is going to be the gable end. That's why you always put a greenhouse with the door facing north. Obviously you can be limited to where you can place the greenhouse, or it might be more convenient the other way, or you might have a fence or whatever. If that's the case, then obviously you need to adjust to suit to put your greenhouse. But if you can, and if you're in most certainly if you're in an exposed area like I am here, it's most certainly important to have the greenhouse facing this way. I have seen people putting it the other way, and I have known people have the glass blown out of the greenhouse when the weather's been particularly bad. So if you want my advice, always place the greenhouse with the door facing north and with the opposite end facing south, so you get the sun going round and the wind can go over the greenhouse rather than hitting a flat wall. So that's why you position the greenhouse in this way. As soon as you've got the base down, obviously what you need to do is erect the frame. And what I suggest you do is erect the walls first. Obviously don't do the roof first. Do the put the wall panels together. So that wall, the back wall, this wall together, and this back wall here as a complete assembly. So you've got an entire wall. As soon as you've done that, then what you need to do is this greenhouse is actually sitting on a base. This aluminium base here is actually a base, so it's like a big rectangle of aluminium section. Some greenhouses do, some greenhouses don't have this. But if you do, obviously put that part down first. I'll come back to that in a moment. Then as soon as you've done that, you need to put a side wall and a gable end in together, and this is where you're going to need some help, because obviously where the two join, which is obviously the corner, you then need to get the bolts in into the corner to hold them two walls together. Now as soon as you've done that, what I suggest you do is don't bolt it down onto the floor or anything yet. Then put the next side in, and then obviously the fourth wall. As soon as you've done that, then you've got all four walls of the greenhouse together. There's no glass in it at this point. Then as soon as you've got all of that together, then put in the bar which goes up the middle of the apex of the roof, and put that in from one end to the other. And then as soon as you've got that in, then start putting the roof trusses on, which are obviously these parts here. Then as soon as you've done that, fit the windows, which are the opening parts. Obviously if you've got a side that isn't, then you don't need to do it. Right, so the wind predominantly, as you can see from the weather vane here, can you see that it's pointing? I don't know if you can see that, but the weather vane is pointing, so the wind's coming towards the camera as we speak now, because you can see the back of the shark's fin is pointing this way, so that means the wind's coming from over here. Because the wind comes this way, I've placed both of the opening windows on this side of the greenhouse. What I could have done is put either both of them on this side or one either side. The reason I've not put them on this side is obviously when the window is open, if it was open kind of like that, yeah, and the wind is coming this way as it is at the moment, obviously because most of the wind comes from the east, the wind could potentially blow underneath the window and push it up and basically knock this bit out and make the window slam and break. So that's why I've put the opening windows facing west. Okay, so as soon as you've got the frame all together and you know that it's square, obviously you've already made sure that the base is level. As soon as you've got it all in one piece and you know that it's all square and everything, now with all greenhouses you're going to have these bits here and these bits here that go sort of diagonally from this part here. As soon as you've got them in, and these bits here and there, you know that the actual frame is square. As soon as you've done that, then that you know that the frame is all square and true, that's when you bolt it down onto the ground. Don't try and put one side and then the next and then bolt that down to the ground, because what you might be doing is, rather than bolting it in square, you might be slightly out or slightly in. So make sure you've got all the pieces together first, the entire frame together in one piece, then bolt it to the ground. Okay, so as soon as you've got it all together, obviously bolting it to the ground, and what I've done, just come out here, every slab that I've got, I've screwed it. I've drilled the slab with a masonry drill, put a raw plug in, and then I've put a screw with a washer through the actual frame into the ground. And now obviously with this one, I've because I've got this sort of aluminium base bit at the bottom, I've screwed that to the ground. And then obviously the actual greenhouse frame is bolted to the square underneath, and you can see it's bolted there, and again on the other side and all up the side. Now what I've done is I've made sure I've got 2 screws in every corner. So I've got one about here and then one about here into the floor, so obviously the corners are in, and then I've put a couple up each end. And what I've tried to do is screw the greenhouse base into as many of the slabs as possible. In fact, to be honest with you, I think I've got a screw going into every slab. The reason being is obviously when the wind gets up, it's going to hit the greenhouse, and what you don't want is the greenhouse to move at all in any way, shape or form. The reason being obviously is when you've got the glass in it, if the frame moves, it's going to potentially basically move and then crack all the glass, so obviously that's to be avoided. Greenhouse glass isn't heinously expensive, but what you don't want to be doing is replacing it, because it is obviously a cost that you want to avoid. So you've now got the frame up and you've screwed it into the floor in as many places as you can, so that the greenhouse won't move. It's all anchored to the ground. You've got all the frame in, then you put the glass in. So what I would suggest you do is most certainly pick a day where there's no wind at all. And what you want to do is, before you start glazing your greenhouse, is have a count and make sure you've got every single pane of glass that you need to glaze the greenhouse. Don't be tempted to do part of it and then stop and come back another day, because if you partly glaze a greenhouse and leave it overnight, if you get a bit of wind in that night, the greenhouse is going to act like a windbreak. And obviously you've seen people with umbrellas turning inside out, and you've seen people, you know, sort of having the washing blown off the line. In exactly the same way, if you partially glaze a greenhouse, when the wind hits it, it will blow all the glass out of the greenhouse. A greenhouse is only sturdy and safe when it's completely glazed. So make sure you've got all of the glass, all of the clips that go into the side, the clips that hold the pieces of glass together, all of these. You need to make sure, have a count up before you start, to make sure you've got all of the screws, bolts, clips and everything that you could possibly need to glaze a greenhouse. And in all honesty, if I was you, I'd make sure you've got a few spare as well, just in case. As soon as you've done that, then you can start to glaze the greenhouse. Now, glaze the roof last. So what you need to do is glaze the gable ends and the walls. It doesn't matter which order you do them in, but make sure you glaze all of the walls, the door, all the way around, so you've got the 2 gable ends and the walls glazed. As soon as you've done that, then glaze the roof. And what I suggest you do on the roof is don't glaze one side of the roof and then the other side of the roof. It depends on the side. If you've got just a 6x8 greenhouse, it doesn't really matter. But if you've got a greenhouse this big or any bigger, you need to make sure that the load, i.e. the weight of the glass on the apex, is as equal as you can get it. Which means what I would do, or the way I did this, is glaze this, then glaze that, so then the weight is equal either side. then glaze this strip, then glaze that strip, and work your way along until you get to the end. That's the best way of doing it. Obviously, if you are limited to the way you can do it, then obviously you need to you know, sort of adjust that to suit yourself. But if I was you, I would glaze one side, then the other side, and then work your way around and work your way up the greenhouse. As soon as you've done that, obviously all of the greenhouse will then be glazed. Make sure you've got plenty of clips in all of the glass, and if you've bought a greenhouse from new, you will find that you'll have advice on how many how many clips that you need for each piece of glass, etc. You can't have too many clips, to be honest with you. If you've got a few spare clips, then just put them in. Like, for example, this piece of glass here, what I should have done was put one clip there, which I have done. As you can see, the clip on the outside. And then this side you should have 2 clips. I actually put 3 clips on this side and also 1 at the top. You can't have too many clips. So what you want to make sure is if you push the glass, in no place will it actually flex. So it's always, you know, sort of hard in. Okay, as soon as you've done that, obviously you've got your greenhouse erected. Now the modifications that I made to this greenhouse to make it slightly better is, what I found is with this gable end here, the gable end was flexing slightly, so if I got the middle bit and pushed it in and out, you could actually move the wall in and out a little bit. It was kind of flexing or bending in the middle, and that's the reason why I put this shelf in. Obviously a shelf is useful anyway, but the actual reason I put this shelf in, which is just a piece of wood, and I made some brackets here and here to hold it into the trusses. As you can see, there's one here and also one here, which is just a piece of aluminium bent, 2 bolts into the frame, and then 2 screws into the piece of wood. The reason I put this wood in is to stop the flexion of this back wall. As you can see, it's absolutely solid now. So I bolted this piece of wood from one end to the other, which is actually a piece of skirting board, I think. Yeah, if you look underneath, you can see the shape at the end there. But as I say, the reason I bolted this in was to stiffen this back wall, because I was worried about the wind hitting it and it flexing and breaking. So those were just a few notes on how to put a greenhouse up. Okay, onto the fence. Now I've got all of the panels ready, which are over there. I've got a couple here and I've got a couple over here. The posts are now ready, they're all painted, and to make it easy, what I've done is I've drawn a line with a pencil all the way around each of the posts. Now this will line up with the top piece of wood here, so that I'll make sure that they're all the same length. And at the bottom of each of the posts, I've put a screw in with about ½ an inch of the screw sticking out. Now all of the posts are the same, as you can see. The reason I've done this is so when the post is upright like that, it'll be sitting on a brick, but the only part of it which will actually be in contact with the brick will be the screw. So it'll leave a ½ an inch gap at the bottom of the post, so that the post won't be sitting, or there's no chance of the bottom of the post sitting in any wet, which will obviously rot the bottom edge of the post. So the brick will be here, and so there'll be an air gap between the two, so no water can sit on here, which will keep the post dry. Now, to save the time on the allotment, obviously where it's muddy and that, what I'm now going to do is to screw the posts to the actual panels. Now these are the two. Sorry, you can't see very well because of the light. These are the two end panels, or the panels that I've chosen to go at each end. As I say, they're all identical to each other. So all I need to do now is to align the line that I've got. I don't know if you can see, but obviously the line that's I've just shown you drawn on there, that will align with the top of the panel like that, and then I'll drive 2 screws through the bottom. So I'm using the same stick that I used before to measure the distance between the panels. So I'm just making sure that I make them all the same, so it's that distance away from the back on the two end panels. Now the screw that's going in is obviously going to go in to the actual post by about that much, about 1.5 inches. And one important thing is, always make sure that for the screw that you've got, always make sure you've got the right driving bit. Now, if you see that's loose, it's not quite tight. What I actually need is this bit here. As you can see, that sits in the screw quite tightly, and there's no movement in there, so when I drive the screw in, it'll go in one go. So that's all the posts attached to at least one fence panel. So this one here is going to be one of the ends, and then that one there is the other end. So those will be the two furthest and nearest ends, if you like. And then these two here, I don't know if you can see, but that'll be the side which is facing the road, the two sort of end bits, and there'll be another panel between the two. So this part here will attach to the back of here, and then make that side, and then the other one will attach to that one, which is obviously the other end, and then this panel here will go in the middle of the two. So now I've got the posts attached to at least one fence panel, then assembling it down at the bottom end of the allotment tomorrow will be considerably easier. Okay, so I've just started to erect the fence, and what I've done is, because it's so much easier to screw down onto the ground, what I've done is I've put together the end one, which is obviously the one on the floor, roughly in position, and then the first two, that's going to be the front bit, if you like, that's going to be the back bit, and now all I need to do is just topple the whole thing over so it's into position, and then with the spirit level I'll be checking that it's all level and putting the brick there and the brick over there to rest the first two sets of posts on. Okay, so now that's in place, I'm now going to put the next two panels, the one that will go here and the one that will go at the back, and then I'm going to work my way along to the other end. Okay, so that's the middle two sections on, if you like. Now, just a quick note, none of this is actually tied to the ground yet, so as you can see, if I wobble it, you know, none of it's actually attached. All I've got is bricks placed on the posts that are in and at the ends of the panels that don't have the posts, and obviously this bit here is up. So the reason I've done that is I want to get it all in one piece, then I can still move it about and shuffle it about to best suit where the rhubarb is, and then I'll be driving the steel post into the ground to fix it in position where it'll stay. So the next stage is to do this panel here, the one across the back, and then the one coming back in. Okay, so that's the fence in place. This is where the OCD kicks in. What I'm now going to do is spend a bit of time making sure it's all level and square before I put the metal posts in this afternoon. Okay, so now I've got all of the fence panels in and they're all level. What I've done is I've already driven down inside here the metal post. So there's the first metal post, screwed in at the top and at the bottom, and also across there, top and the bottom. And for this I'm just using, all I'm screwing those in with is these sort of 2-inch screws. And obviously, like I said last night, also make sure you've got the right bit for them in your drill. So that's the screw. So now I've done that, I'm going to put the steel posts in the other end, and I'll show you me doing this so you know what to do yourself. So, because you know all of the panels are square, you already know that this is obviously upright. So all you've got to do is just drive the steel post down into the ground at this point. So just making sure the brick's out the way at the bottom. Like that. So now the steel post just goes down down the side, hang on, the brick's in the way. Like that, so making sure you've got no obstructions in the ground. You can, because I've dug this ground and now you know why I've dug it, you can push it down so far, then all you got to do is just keep driving it in. keeping your hand towards the top to make sure that it goes down in a straight manner. Now, because I've almost reached the top, this little lug that's at the bottom now, I can start to drive it in from there. So whilst I'm still keeping the top straight, so that's that one in. Now I just need to do exactly the same on the other side, and then just bob a couple of screws on each one to hold it in place. When you're doing this, the top one is the one that's going to be the furthest out of the two posts. So all you got to do is drill the top one in first and then bob the bottom on it. That's it, job done. So that's the two sides in, and as you can see, as soon as you put the steel post in, it's absolutely rock solid. You know, that's not moving at all. So all we've got to do now is just secure the middle two posts on the front and the back. And the way to do that is start at the corner on the side you're not going to do. So what you want, the reason you've done that is you want the string to go around this post and you want it to go on the outside. And what I'm doing is just using that as a plumb line to make sure these posts here and here are exactly straight. So obviously I'll move them backwards and forwards until I know that they're straight. At the corners you don't need to use a spirit level, but obviously when you come to this bit here, what you want to do is make sure that put a spirit level against the post to make sure that it's completely upright, and also that the string here, if you can see that, is just on it. What you might need to do is just tap the bottom in and out to get it so the bottom's in the right place before you start to drive the post in. So I'll obviously do it on these two posts here, and then put the string the opposite way around so it runs along the back. And because I know that each of the ends are anchored in solid, and this end in here is solid, then all I need to do is just draw a straight line from here all the way along to there, and then get those two lines square. Then it's completely level, completely square, and job's a good one. Okay, so that's pretty much it. All the posts have gone in down the side, so you can see one there, and one there, and then one here and one here. And it's all straight, plumb, and that is not going anywhere, so it'll most certainly hold the rhubarb in. There's no problem about that. Now, you might be asking what I'm doing round the bottom, and I've had this plan all along. Basically, because I put a load of muck and straw and whatever else in here to mulch and sort of fertilise the rhubarb, what I'm going to do is all the way around the edge. I've got quite a reasonable number of roofing tiles, just normal tiles, and I'm going to place them around the edge kind of like this. So basically just pushed into the ground. So as you can see, when I was putting the hedge in, I've kind of dug a little bit of a ditch all the way around, and all I'm going to do is just push them into the ground. They're not going to be fastened in any way, shape or form, because the straw and the muck will hold them in place. And I'm just going to sort of make a row all the way around as much as I can. Obviously there might be some edges, little sort of holes towards the edges, but that isn't going to cause a problem. So that is pretty much it. So that's the fence in place. The only thing I'm going to do now is, whilst I drove the posts in, I don't know if you can see there's a bit of a scratch there where the post went down. I'm just going to bob a little bit of paint on there and on the other two. And the other thing is, whilst I was putting it in, I managed to chip the edge of this post. A little bit of wood's come off, so I'm just going to put a bit of paint on there. It's nothing to worry about. So that's the fence finished. So just a really quick note on the chickens. This time of year, make sure they've got plenty of dry bedding. The food's completely topped up, and this is most certainly now the time to start putting glycerine into the water to stop it from freezing at night. Obviously we've had a couple of 1 degrees over the last week, so it's likely to freeze next week. So when you top your water up, which I'm about to do with this, all you need to do is just drop literally half a teaspoon of glycerin in with the water, and that will prevent it from freezing right the way down to about -7, -8. So more than more than good enough what we're likely to see in the next few weeks anyway. So there are the chickens. So I hope you've enjoyed Jim's allotment garden. I know there's going to be a question on everybody's mind: how much did the fence cost? Well, all of the wood was recycled. It was either a shed that one of my neighbours here gave me, or it was part of a shed that you saw that I got from just down the road. All of the screws and everything else I had in the shed where I'd been I'd used stuff before and got stuff left over. So all of the screws, the metal posts and everything I'd already got in the allotment. I just needed to cut them in half. And all of the screws that I had in the shed, as I've already said. So the only thing I actually needed to buy to make the shed were the nails. So all of that fence I put together for £3.20. So can't go wrong really. All it really cost was time. So obviously if you put your mind to it, it's you know, you can make your allotment really cheap, as I've explained before. So thank you for watching another episode of Jim's Allotment. There will be plenty of other things going on. Now I've got that fence in, I'm going to put all of the tiles around, as I've explained. I'm going to be putting a load of muck in there. I'm also going to be putting some of the coffee, and I'm also going to be putting some of the wood chippings, etc., to mulch it all over the winter. There'll be more preparation down the side here. Obviously, because we've had a couple of frosts this week, well, it's gone down to 1 degree. A lot of the plants have now died. All of the nasturtiums here have gone, and I've already shown you the squash, so that's also gone. The greenhouse is doing pretty well. The rocket is almost ready to pick. I'll just quickly show you that. So there's the rocket. So I'm doing this left-handedly, so as you can see, that's ready to pick. So that's it for this week. Thank you everybody for giving me your comments. Please do subscribe or leave any comments that you have at the bottom. And if there's anything that that you're thinking of doing next year or whatever, and you want any advice, please do put it in a comment, and I'll be more than happy to explain, like I explained with the greenhouse for Dave Rorke's. I'll be more than happy to explain anything that I've done in the allotment. So if you want to drop me a note, and I'll try and bob it in the next few weeks. So thanks very much for watching Jim's Allotment, and I'll see you next time.